last video cut off because I was running out of memory. But yeah, if I'm being honest, it really looks like the Jews have put themselves in the position that is so bad behind closed doors that if you say anything about them at all, it's anti-Semitic. Even if you point to the fact that they are controlling the evil, demonic media, they like to say that's anti-Semitic. Although my understanding is the word anti-Semitic is more of an anti-Arabic word. I mean, it's fucking weird what the hell's been going on here. I guess that's what happens when they fuck with our languages and have us talking this broken, fallen, angelic English. But, just a couple months ago, I'm on here going, I've been a conservative Christian my whole life. I love Israel and I love Benjamin Netanyahu, and, you know, Netanyahu likes Trump and I like Trump and blah, 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 blah. Now I see that, I mean, I still like Trump, but you can't trust anybody anymore. Anybody. And I think that the Jews should throw the Catholics under the fucking bus. I think that they should call themselves a little meeting and draw straws and see who's going to tell on who for brainwashing my fucking family. Raping my mind, raping my family's minds, raping my children's minds, everybody's families. Brainwashed. Fucked them all up. And there's a big movement, big disclosure movement coming. I think in June that they don't want people paying attention to. And Dr. Stephen Greer is not fucking around. And I'm a little bit nervous to see what kind of a shit show our fine United States government orchestrates to try to distract people from paying attention to this shit.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Stephen Greer, and welcome to our YouTube channel. It's a very special event regarding plans that the Disclosure Project is making that I think you'll be very interested in hearing. I'm very privileged to have on with us an attorney, Derek Garcia. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Dr. Greer. It's very good to be here.
And, you know, Derek was a young student when he got involved with what we were doing with the Disclosure Project back in 2000, 2001. I think you were at Wesleyan, if I remember correctly. And he since has become an attorney doing public interest law generally, I believe, and has helped us with some matters over the years. And he's just a wonderful person. And he is heading up an effort that is history making in many ways. I first want to just introduce the idea of why we're going to do this in a moment. But first, Derek, if you could just tell everyone, you know, your background and how you got involved, and just a little bit about yourself, would be great.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Derek Garcia. I'm a civil rights attorney from New Mexico. I've been in practice approximately 13 years, both in state and federal courts. Admitted to practice in both the Federal District of New Mexico as well as the United States Courts of Appeals for the 10th Circuit and the United States Supreme Court. And I've done a variety of plaintiffs' civil rights cases surrounding constitutional law, search and seizure cases brought under the Fourth Amendment, in addition to a variety of criminal defense, environmental law, and intellectual property law as well as related to this subject. And it's great to be here, and I look forward to speaking about our upcoming legal efforts.
Right. So the big announcement here, as you see from the headline on this YouTube breaking news, is that for some time, since the late 1990s, I've spoken with constitutional attorneys, since before Mr. Garcia was actually an attorney, about the civilian application of the RICO statute. So RICO stands for Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization. And it was put in place some decades ago as a way to pursue, or obviously, racketeering, corrupt organization, referring to criminal organizations, crime families, and things of this sort. But in a sense, all criminal conspiracies that fall under certain categories. And it was mentioned to me back in the 1990s that, in fact, the late 1990s, that the criminal conduct of the organizations who are running covert programs related to UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence and their associated technologies would fall under this statute. And that at some point, a civilian group could organize and then initiate, without the federal government doing so initially, a civilian RICO action, meaning that we, the Disclosure Project, and all of us would begin a process to prosecute, in a sense, or sue in a civilian application that's allowed by law of the RICO statute, the major corporations and the government agencies that have illegally run projects since the late 1950s. And that then this would open the door for us to be able to involve under oath testimony, depositions, subpoenas, and to enter into sites that have been run illegally. The key point here is that we would have to prove, which we can do now through testimony and information we have, that both corporate and agencies within the U.S. government have run these projects without the oversight of the president and approval or the Congress, which is required by law. And therefore, they are criminal activities and organizations, and that they run the gamut from murder, kidnapping, drug running, embezzlement of federal funds, and a host of other major felonies. So we have known this for a very long time, and in conversations recently with Mr. Garcia, we've concluded that we need to begin that process. And so we are announcing and making a call for attorneys as well as other supporters to assist us in this effort. So, Derek, if you want to just go a little more into, since you're a lawyer, you certainly know the statutes better than I do. I wanted to give people sort of the big picture of what we're doing and the foundation for it. The foundation of it, again, is that we can prove in a federal court that these programs have been run illegally and unconstitutionally and have engaged in criminal behavior. I should add, in the last 2 months, I have had multiple top secret whistleblowers who have had witness tampering, intimidation, threats that have been pushed their way. So this is another crime to add to the other list. There's a very long list of criminal activity which we would claim and actually could prove in a court of law.
That's precisely right. From everything that I've seen from your work over the years, is that we have more than enough evidence at this point to prove in a court of law that this illegal enterprise, this corrupt organization exists and has existed for a number of decades. And not only that, has been involved in what the law defines as racketeering activity, a long list of enumerated crimes, which we are empowered through the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organization Act of 1970 to essentially enforce civilly through the federal court system, through force of civil law. The initial intention, the law was created in 1970 to prevent union busting and sort of organized crime activity from taking over, democratic practices and electing, union representatives and that sort of thing. But in this context, in the biggest story of human history, which the Disclosure Project represents, I think it can be used effectively to essentially civilly prosecute a number of enumerated crimes, which we can prove in a court of law that this racketeering influenced corrupt organization has participated in for a number of years. The only standing requirement that I can see from the law and my familiarity in practice in this area is that a citizen must bring a civil action under the RICO Act if the organization or the individual has been harmed in some way by the corrupt and criminal organization's illegal activities. And from everything that I know from your work over the past 30 years in this area, we certainly meet that definition. And so this is a call for a national call to action and invitation to begin the process of assembling a multi-jurisdictional legal team in which we will bring attorneys together of all sorts of different experience areas, practice areas, in order to pursue these claims in federal court across various jurisdictions, as well as to gain access to some of the unacknowledged special access projects that we are familiar with, and to act on the actionable intelligence that you have already provided the members of Congress for decades now. So it's a very exciting time, and we're doing this call out for anyone with experience in constitutional law, national security, foreign relations, space law and policy, intelligence, security clearances, related legal matters, any sort of Whistleblower Protection Act, statutes and enforcement of that area of law, RICO actions, including the civilian enforcement of the criminal code. Legislative law and policy surrounding the National Defense Authorization Act of 2023 includes the current Pentagon efforts to study the UAP phenomena, although as we know, for anyone that's been following the Disclosure Project, as I have since at least May 2001, this testimony has already been substantially developed, going back.
Right, and I want to add that what has been added to our, let's call it, group of whistleblowers, which initially numbered, when I was doing things, providing information to the Clinton administration and the director of the CIA, was numbered only maybe a handful or a dozen. And by 1995, it was a couple dozen at the Asilomar Retreat Center that we organized in 95, with a number of whistleblowers from different walks of life. That was a private gathering. And by the time we did the National Press Club event in 2001, we had several hundred. Now I have a list of pushing 1,000 names of people that I have information on or who I have debriefed. Many of them want to come forward. Some would be what I call uncooperating or hostile witnesses. But if they get a subpoena, they have to comply with the subpoena. And, it's not like they would have a choice. And some of the people on that list would be the who's who in the corporate and higher reaches of this hybrid military-industrial entity that Eisenhower talked about, that I know for a fact have been involved. Let me give you one example. Although the offending party is dead, but not the person who was the victim. Back in the day when we were getting all this material, and this is the bombshell that you will see at the National Press Club event and at the conference on June 10th and 12th in Washington, a man who is a renowned Hollywood figure, who I will not name right now, was with the then soon ex-president Bill Clinton and another major celebrity in a limousine. And he asked about this issue. And the President Clinton, said, and we have his written statement now, it came in on yesterday, that the president said, well, I was told just a little bit of information, but the former director of the CIA and former President George H.W. Bush approached him and said, this is none of your business. You're just the president, and you are not to look into this any further. And now that is headline news, what I just said. Now, we have two witnesses to this that can be subpoenaed. One, the Hollywood figure, another, the celebrity star that he was working with. Now, why is that important? Because I knew at the time, and I was told explicitly, that the president wanted to pursue this, but that he was, in fact, waived off. And I eventually heard that he was not only waived off, but then induced through, let's call it briberies and what have you, to not further look into and pursue this matter. Now, this kind of corruption at the highest levels of the presidency, which has happened multiple times, I might point out, and other political figures, is also a crime. And you cannot turn to the president of the United States or a person fully vested on a oversight committee of the Congress and tell them you have no business to look into something that the taxpayers of the United States are paying for, and which is something of great import to the national security. I also want to point out that when you start looking at who all these top secret whistleblower witnesses are that are in our list, these are being turned over to the key investigators for Congress, the White House, and the Pentagon. And
this is a little bit over an hour long. I'm not going to play it all. You should totally go watch it and totally follow Dr. Stephen Greer. He is so fucking right. Obviously the Clintons are corrupt as fuck, but me growing up Republican, I thought the Bushes were good guys because they were wearing red. And actually the Bush family are just as fucking shady, if not worse, than the Clintons, actually. When you look back throughout history, it is horrifying. I promise. If you are a conservative Christian, it is horrifying to understand that these politics are really like Bloods and Crips. Red and blue. I'm fucking done with it. It's so bad what has happened. They have us fighting each other constantly and blind, sitting around eating fucking bonbons while our government is, blowing Nord Stream pipeline like before. I used to think that like Muslims, China, Iraq and Afghanistan, all that shit, I used to think that all of that was the bad guys. Like, I'd keep looking overseas and keep following this fucking news shit. I'm going, oh man, the bad guys are over there. No, the bad guys are the United States. And if the United States citizens do not get the fuck up off their knees, quit praying to a God outside of them, and understand that we have all been lied to and it's bad. And if we don't decide to fucking do something about this and march everywhere and stop these motherfuckers, it's going to get bad. We are like 8 months into tribulation of the biblical apocalypse. And for what it's worth, I didn't know shit. Did not know shit a few months ago. But when this happened to me, it was like scrolls of information downloaded into my fucking head, and I could not read them. I could not fucking believe what I was experiencing. And for my pain and suffering and my family's pain and suffering throughout this, I'm absolutely fucking suing somebody. These doctors will very quickly put people on antipsychotics, drop them off of medications, myself included. Literally been picked up and dropped off of so many medications within a year. Whenever I took myself to the mental hospital after COVID was unleashed and after, Trump lost the presidency and, Biden got in, and I was fucking terrified because I knew there were angels crying everywhere, and I knew that God was under attack because I saw God in everybody's hearts. Everybody's hearts. And I'm going, oh my God, we're fucked. Like, I am so scared. I'm so scared. Like, I don't know if I'm having a breakdown. Like, I am so scared. And then, in accordance with Mercury going retrograde in September and Rosh Hashanah at the end of September, the shit I had to experience to fuck around and wake up and remember that, oh my God, this is why I institutionalized myself, because God was under attack, because we are God source here living temporary human experiences. And because I got to look like a fucking psycho and talk about a soul contract with an entity named Elijah, I'm fucking sick. And I'm going, hey fam, I know this looks really bad, but I know that you don't remember, but like, we actually came into this game as a team. And I'm going to go through some serious hell to be able to figure out how to make this path a little easier for you. But yeah, shit's not what it seems. And if you don't believe me, you know, you don't have to call mental health services on me like they did, which I don't blame them. You know, my townsfolk called the police on me when I woke up talking about this shit, flipping the fuck out. And I tried to speak to police. I tried to speak to an attorney. Tried to go to Jewish synagogues. Tried everything I fucking could, and nobody wanted to hear me. Okay. All right. Well, now I'm going to go ahead and put myself through the psychological fucking testing ringer. Because, oh yeah, motherfuckers attacking our families because our children are God. Our children are actually very old souls coming into this game to make the world a better place. And these mothers got their kids out here on fucking ADHD medications, not doing their research and understanding that they're poisoning our food and that the dyes in it alone are enough to be causing all of these problems, let alone all of this fucking gaslighting and brainwashing. Oh yeah? Oh. Okay. That's fine. Why it ought to be me. This is the most important shit going on right now. And as a server and a bartender, I know how much you motherfuckers like to drink. To absorb the shock of the extraterrestrials, I think that you should start paint and sipping some Lyrans, or maybe paint and sipping some Pleiadians. Really. Like, why don't you start paint and sipping some Mintakans, paint and sipping the Royals as they are, or in their draconian form. I mean, I was never a conspiracy theorist. Never. Like, now I am. It's not fucking conspiracy. They're putting it right in front of us. I'm so mad. I am so pissed. Big Pharma's big secret and the whole psychological game, you know, this whole mental illness game they're playing, everything from anxiety to depression could be helped with a medication called clomipramine. It's the gold standard OCD medication. It's been around since the 70s and it's dirt cheap. Oh,